Slop. Okay, hello, welcome back to a bit of slop. Today we're going to break down, talk about what went wrong. Graveyard of Empire's been out for a little bit now. I've only played it pre-release because I was away for a little bit, about 2 weeks there, so I haven't actually caught up with much on what people are saying. But I'm just going to have a quick look. Okay, it seems it didn't go very well. Now, as somebody who did have access to the DLC a good while before it released, I already knew this wasn't going to go well. Now, if you watched any of my videos already covering the DLC, I did preface saying that a lot of the content may be different on release because I had a super early access build of the game, which turned out, well, not to be very true. Yeah, not a lot of those bugs got fixed on release. Now, some people may hate me for this, but whenever I get given a early access DLC, specifically by Paradox, I never report any bugs unless the game literally doesn't boot up. Now, I know that is probably going to be a controversial thing to say because the game, obviously, well, the DLC came out and it was riddled with bugs, and a lot of them I did cover in my video, not all of them, which obviously asks the question of why the hell didn't you say anything, and it's pretty simple, at least from my point of view. I'm not a QA tester. I wasn't paid to be a QA tester. I wasn't given a sponsorship, which, you know, sure, maybe if you gave me a little bit of money there, I'd have said, no, I'm kidding. But, you know, I kid around, but even during sponsorships, I don't report back bugs unless the game literally doesn't boot. And obviously, no shade here to Paradox. We've got a great relationship, and I really love when you do sponsor me and give me early access to DLCs. But a bit of constructive criticism here is that I don't believe you should be really getting the bulk of your QA done through content creators and people, in some cases, you sponsor to play the DLC. Because when, you know, we get early access to this DLC, everyone gets thrown into a big Discord, everyone ends up reporting all these bugs, and it only chops off the top 10% of those bugs. So, very clearly, the issue, you know, isn't, oh, well, you should just report the bugs, because it doesn't matter. I've reported bugs before, they've actually still come out in release, which is just hilarious. But also, like, the top 10% of the bugs that actually get caught, that's just the top 10%. There's still 90% more that people like me or people that get early access to this DLC miss. So I think the issue isn't, you know, me reporting bugs or other people not reporting enough bugs, is that Paradox, at least in HOI4, need a bit more of a QA testing team for DLCs like this. But yeah, I just think a lot of the QA testing needs to be done in the background. A lot of it, of course, does go out to play test and stuff like that, and I'm sure a lot of people do volunteer for it. But in my opinion, at least as an influencer, I guess, I'm not really into helping out the multi-million-dollar corporation off the goodness of my heart, because it does lead to situations like this DLC and others that have come out, specifically by Blood Alone, which is the one that really made me want to stop reporting bugs to Paradox, that it does not matter. Even sometimes when you report bugs, they still come out. But by Blood Alone, even though that was the main Paradox team, I believe, and not the side team, we'll get into that in a bit later, came out with so many bugs, there were so many things broken that, you know, I specifically went through, sent a whole bunch of the bugs over, and they still came out on release. Which, you know, it's a shame, because By Blood Alone did come with one of my favorite focus trees in the game, which was Italy, but also came with so many bugs to the point that it is still mostly negative on Steam to this day. But this video is about Graveyard of Empires, which in my opinion is actually a bit of a continuation of all those issues that came from By Blood Alone, and we're going to break them down today. First off, we do have to mention that, you know, there's a big quality dip from Got a Damn Rung, which is a great DLC that came out quite recently, and Graveyard of Empires, and some people are confused by the massive drop in quality, and that is simply down to the fact that this DLC was released by a side team called Team Juno. Yeah, there's not too much known about these guys and what they get up to, and I'm not gonna, you know, just go out of my way to be looking too far into this and what they get up to, other than obviously developing on the side for Paradox, who they get hired by. Are they just outside hires, stuff like that, community members that they paid money to? But they did go ahead and make Trials of Allegiance, which, you know, a lot of people didn't like, specifically down to the price tag, and it did come with a few bugs of its own, but nowhere near the absolute quality drop that was this DLC. Now, I do want to go ahead and talk a little bit about Trials of Allegiance and why that DLC is good in my opinion. There are obviously a lot of negatives to it, specifically the region that it's in and the price tag that came with it. But the focus trees in it are, in my opinion, very good. But the thing that makes them very, very good and a lot of fun to play if you haven't really given them a go before, maybe, you know, have a little wander down there, is unsurprisingly, or maybe actually surprisingly to some people, the fact that you are in South America, which gives you a lot of wiggle room for conquest and getting pretty damn large. So not only do you get yourself very powerful focus trees between all of the major players down here, you also get yourself a whole playground of land to mess around with, get loads of stuff, get loads of cores as well, loads of factories, and become a really big player without having to come into contact with the major powers. It's essentially one big isolated sandbox that by the time you've actually finished up getting all the land you need, you can actually be in a very, very powerful position, enough to go ahead and enter the world stage. Like I said, Trial of Allegiance did come with loads of problems. Some people complain that obviously the bonuses in there were a huge power creep, actually insane compared to anything that had been in the game before. And in all fairness, Paradox did roll back a whole bunch of these buffs and changes and make it a bit more in line, but in my opinion, they are still very, very powerful in a lot of places. Now, in comparison to Trial of Allegiance, the good things about it that I just said, Graveyard of Empires is the complete opposite in every single regard. First off, let's just say you're playing India. You don't have the big old sandbox area to go ahead and endlessly expand without coming into contact with major powers. Now, there are a few, obviously, like Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, even the Kingdom of Afghanistan, Iran, and then potentially, if you really want to risk it, you could go to war with China and the Chinese United Front. But let's just say Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet ain't exactly the same as, say, playing Argentina, getting all of Brazil, Chile, and all of these huge areas with a whole bunch of pop and a whole bunch of land to build. On top of that, you can also get all of this land cored for the majority of the players down here. So, obviously, you now no longer get the sandbox fun of Trial of Allegiance, which really probably made the best amount of fun for that DLC, in my opinion, because you can get so much from so little. Instead, all of the nations in this DLC have pretty small avenues of expansion that don't rely on you going to war with pretty much everyone. Which means if you're playing, let's say, India in this specific scenario, you do need to go ahead and rush your main political trees to get things going quickly. Which means you got to spend all your time doing all these large focuses that do take a long time to get through. This means that for the majority of the time, if you watch my East India Company video, you notice that it went on pretty long, same with the Gandhi one, before I was able to really get things doing. In fact, we went up to like the 50s in one game before I'd even declared a war. Now, obviously, if you were to rush down just purely your main focus tree, you could probably get things going a lot quicker. You could fight the allies, potentially win, and I know there are some peace out clauses for some of the trees, which I do want to say on release when I actually tried them. I say on release, before pre-release when I actually tried a few of them, guess what? They did not work. I did not get any pieces, and by pieces I mean you get a little decision where you could offer peace to certain countries. Yeah, it didn't do anything. So you need to rush down your tree to even stand a chance of fighting the UK in this specific scenario over here. And if you don't, well, guess what? It's probably like 1945, they're gonna kick your ass. Now, I know what you're saying. Why the hell am I rambling about having to rush down a political tree? That's pretty normal for a focus tree, especially one that's in a bit of a precarious situation like the Raj, especially in terms of fighting big powers. Pretty simple. If we look at this one path over here, that's a lot of focuses, a lot of land, and you could see a lot of the expansion is over here. So you're going to have to do quite a lot before you can even get anywhere, which leads to the problem of when I zoom out, when do I find the time to do all of these focuses too? The answer is you don't, but the problem is you do need to. A lot of India's manpower actually comes from reforming your recruitment offices over here to get rid of your agrarian society. And the problem with getting rid of your agrarian society is that it's locked behind a whole bunch of nonsensical things like having 69% stability, 55% war support, more than 68% war support, and you need to be fighting a major country. So then if you've gone ahead, you've got all three of these things right here, you can then go ahead and do industrialization schemes which will knock off the rest of your agrarian society. It takes a long time to do. And yeah, that is just going down, getting rid of one debuff you have. You also get all of this interesting stuff over here that you really would like to do, but unfortunately you can't afford to do it because because you also need to do your economy trees over here. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it really just feels not like a good balance, you know, where you just end up having a lot of focuses left over, even to the point when you're like in the mid 1940s and you've still got half the damn tree over here to do. Where it just feels like at that point you don't really need to do them anymore, which is a shame. Now that's just one specific little scenario right there, talking about how, you know, the British Raj tree isn't exactly the most well optimized in terms of how much stuff you gotta do, not including all the bugs behind it. Obviously we showed off a whole bunch in my videos, but overall, it just lacks that little bit of polish that makes it play pretty fluidly. And this really translates into every single tree. It really is just a huge, you know, quality drop that could have really been narrowed down by just having people play it all the way through. Yeah, now the Afghan tree is probably one of the most unique, in a way, focuses in the game, because if you watch my video, you can get a whole bunch of land by flip-flopping in between who you're actually, you know, aligning with. Yeah, but much like the Indian tree, you do have to prioritize the expansion very quickly for Afghanistan, because well, it's not as bad as the Raj tree, because, you know, the Afghan tree is definitely a heck of a lot smaller. But yeah, I don't think Afghanistan's trees that bad. It's not very unique in my opinion. All the paths are a little bit disappointing. I was kind of expecting, you know, something, I don't know what I'd expect from Afghanistan, but just, you know, something a bit more interesting. I mean, if we look over here with the alt history path, and you know, you go through it, you don't really see too much, you don't get a lot of land, and you essentially just join the axis. There's nothing really in here that stands out to me. The only thing that's really unique, I guess, is the where is it, the alliance with the Turkic people, where you spread a whole bunch of resistance in the Soviet land, and then when you go to war with them, they will join you. But the problem with this goes like parallel to a line over here where you also just fight the Raj. I'm assuming this may come with a peace out option that may or may not work. I don't know, I haven't tried it, but you know, I was kind of just expecting something a bit more unique than just war goal on X country, especially for a nation like Afghanistan, where obviously you're not exactly going to be able to topple the Soviet Union or the British Raj. You could probably hold them off pretty damn easily. That's going to be no problem. But you know, in a game like HOI4, where the alt history paths tend to be a bit more, let's just say, on the schizo side, a bit more expansionist, and a bit more tending to be in the fun directions, this one's a little bit weak, especially, like I said, when you do have to focus on doing a lot of stuff like getting your economy going, and you do have a whole bunch of economy stuff you do need to do. One of the big annoyances people came out with is that when you actually do these coups down here and you flip ideologies of Afghanistan, the AI will just get like 20 units, and if you rush down it, you not only do you lose like half of your units, but they also have double the amount. So it's, I don't know who didn't look at that, but that is one of the biggest oversights in the Afghan focus tree, in my opinion. Again, something that could have been easily fixed if someone, you know, QA or the development team had just played through the nation. And considering they didn't, or the QA team didn't pick something so stupid like that up, really comes down to a big question of whose fault is that? I think the team behind this DLC is getting a lot of flack, and, you know, I guess rightly so in a way, because they did make the thing, but it's not up to the team to release it in their state. It's down to the developers. And I guess in turn, down to the shareholders who want that sweet profit. So I'm not going to blindly be like, you know, this development team should never be allowed to work on anything ever again, when pretty clearly they can make some fun. Sure, you know, it's down to the pricing that a lot of people had issues with, and obviously the area, but I still think these are some pretty fun focus trees down in South America. Well, I think instead, obviously, it does come down to, obviously, Paradox and the HOI4 team, or whoever went ahead and said, yep, this is okay to release, because it wasn't. Obviously, with the lack of quality in the focus trees and the absolute astounding amount of bugs, you'd have thought that somebody would have told somebody that this thing needs a little bit more time in the oven. But obviously, in the world we live in, you know, the profits must go up. So I could see a sense of getting sympathy for obviously the team behind this, in that they, you know, they may not have been able to say, no, this is not ready to come out, or please, for the love of God, we cannot do this in said amount of time that you want us to do it. It obviously doesn't, you know, abscond anyone of full blame here, but realistically, the blame is blame at this point, because, you know, if you are upset with this product, you can go ahead and refund it. Steam is pretty great like that. And Paradox has already released a statement saying they are going to work and try and fix the DLC, and they've already done a little patch that's dropped and fixed a whole bunch of stuff. Does it realistically mean this is okay? No, not in my opinion. Obviously, this is a product people pay for, and of course, if you're getting a product that is definitely not worth paying for, I'd be upset too. And I really don't want it to be a case where obviously this all gets forgotten about 2 DLCs from now, and the same thing just rinses and repeats, just like By Blood alone. So I do think it's pretty important that obviously people do, you know, keep pressuring when things are bad, but they should do it in a way that's not absolutely crazy. Hunting down individual members of the team, and specifically a lot of the threats that were coming through to Paradox because of things like Coring Tibet, and very personal, I will say. It's not going to be a good look for everyone. Just like spewing individual hatred to members of the team, or even Paradox in general, that is just completely, you know, uncalled for. Like, you know, there's a lot of personal threats. People are apparently going to be murdering every member of the team, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I know it's probably like a minute percentage of dumb people that do that, but, you know, it is valid to criticize, you know, what has been made here. But the easiest way to criticize what's been made is simply state, I don't like it, it's a bad product, I'm going to refund it. You'll get a lot more done that way than just threatening people. You know, maybe it's just me, but I can't ever imagine getting that angry about Hearts of Iron 4. And if you are one of those people that has been that angry about Hearts of Iron 4, go outside and touch grass. There's a lot more to life in this world than this stupid video game. Now, overall, obviously, you know, everything has been said about this DLC and what's bad about it. Obviously, a complete lack of quality and quality control, but realistically, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what happens short term. Sure, they might fix something now, and, you know, they'll get the claps like, well done, Paradox, you did it. But my honest opinion is this really shouldn't happen again. You know, it is a complete horrible idea that, you know, people will forget, but clearly people do forget, because this has already happened before, and it will happen again, no doubt about it. And, you know, there's no criticism that I can, you know, amplify here that hasn't already been said 1,000 times, and everyone already feels. But, you know, it is a bit annoying to have to repeat the same problems, and I do not think it'll ever be fixed, because obviously there is obviously a culture in that we live in where, you know, money needs to be made, and money needs to be made quickly. But it would be nice if development on these little DLCs could be given way more QA, especially for the prices that you have to pay for them. It really does feel like we're paying more and more for less and less, not just with Paradox, but obviously the games industry in general. Sometimes, obviously, there are still some really good games that come out and good pieces of DLC, but you know, it feels like it's becoming more of an outlier nowadays. But the one thing I really just, you know, if anyone at Paradox even needs to listen to it at this point, ask and simply request is more QA be done. Because whilst the focus trees obviously aren't the best, a lot of the issues could have been fixed by somebody just playing through it quickly. And you shouldn't have to rely on people like me or community members that do play tests where, you know, to tell you what your job is. You know, some of the most basic things just fell through the cracks. I think one of the biggest one is obviously the nuclear India one, where they were supposed to destroy factories, which is just like, that was put in the game very specifically as a thing and did not work. I don't know how quickly that would have been to check, and if it's even fixed right now, I haven't looked at all. I got my old save here. I don't know if this will actually work, obviously, because, you know, the thing that was broken with it might have been fixed it might be something that had to be added to your country that was broken. So we'll just see if this works. Okay, so we got one mill factory in Moscow. Let's see if this disappears when the nuke goes off. If the nuke goes off, there you go. The nuke's gone off, and no, it doesn't get permanently deleted. Yeah, something like that is just so ridiculous. How did no one test that? You put it in the game. How was it not tested? All it would have taken to see that is obviously just play a game through. And, but, I'm criticizing what I've already said here. But yeah, things obviously need to change. And obviously Paradox already came out and said they're going to be fixing a whole bunch of the DLC and what was wrong with it. Whether or not we'll stick to that and if it'll be worth buying. I think it's already left a huge sour taste in people's mouth to the point that they're probably not going to pick it up if they've already refunded. Which honestly is the biggest criticism you can give to Paradox. Again, vote with your wallet. That is what will, make people actually listen here. But yeah, I think a lot of people have probably already said everything I've said, and there's nothing new to really be had from my point of view. But some people are asking, and this is obviously the Slop channel, so I need something to record in an hour and then edit and upload because you guys don't get a lot of content at the moment. So what do you guys think? What does realistically Paradox need to do to change the outcome of this DLC? And whether or not it can even be fixed. Obviously, we've already talked about the balance, the gameplay, the loop that comes with playing a country like the Raj, and I'm sure that translates to both Iran and Iraq, who I haven't really played yet. So what would you consider the big fix here be? I think, in my opinion, it definitely comes down probably to time crunch. This DLC probably came out pretty quickly, and the team behind it, obviously, could have done with a bit more, but also same time QA, and don't rely on people like me to do your QA for you. What about you guys? Anything I missed while talking about this topic? Let me know. Comments down below. I'll be reading them after I edit and upload this. And definitely interested to see where the patch notes go. I'll be keeping an eye on them, and obviously I still have to go play Iran and Iraq at some point, so I'm probably going to wait another couple of weeks before I go back and have a look at them. Oh, and also a side note, I kind of get the point of why they did release a whole bunch of nations over here, probably to make nations like Iraq more fun to play. Haven't played them yet though, so yeah, it is, a little bit weird that they have released them, but I can kind of get it. But also little Timmy down there in Kosovo. How's that laptop doing when running the game nowadays? Probably not pretty well. But yeah, that's all for now, little Timothy's. I'll catch you all on the flippity flip.